Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. This week, I am doing something that I have never done before on the Finance Marketing Podcast. I am interviewing a member of my own team. I'm thrilled to have Kayla Anderson, our graphic and web designer, join me for a conversation about branding and design. As a recent graduate of Savannah College of Art and Design, Kayla left with skills ranging from branding to UI and UX design, and she has been applying these skills as a freelancer and in her newly acquired position at Moneta Copy. Kayla has been such an incredible addition to our team, and I have been so impressed by her ability to take a client's vision and transform it into visual branding that truly reflects their personality and connects with their ideal audience. She is actually currently working on a complete brand refresh for Moneta Copy, which I am so excited to share with you. And she has also done some amazing work for several of our clients. In today's conversation, Kayla is pulling back the curtain on her design process, and she's sharing why professional branding is one of the most critical investments a business owner can make, especially online business owners where first impressions truly happen in seconds. We're diving into the psychology behind color choices and different design elements, and Kayla explains how she approaches brand refreshes to strike the perfect balance between maintaining professional credibility while also helping clients stand out with authentic and personality-driven branding. So if you have been DIYing your design work and wondering when it's time to invest in professional branding, or you're simply curious about what goes into creating a brand that truly converts, this episode will give you valuable insights into how more strategic design can impact your bottom line and help you connect more effectively with your ideal clients. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right, Kayla, I am so excited to have you on the Finance Marketing Podcast today. This is actually the first time that I have ever had a team member on with me, which feels like I should probably do that more often. So excited you're here. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on, and I'm so excited to be the first team member.
Yeah, this is so great. So for anyone who doesn't know, you are the designer on our team. You are a fabulous, brilliant graphic and web designer. And so I'm excited to get into some of the work that you do. And especially we can talk about how you've been helping Moneta go through a little bit of a brand refresh. Before we do that, will you just give us a little bit of background on you, how you got into the design field, what you love about it, all those good things?
Okay, so I guess I'll start by saying that I've always been creative in a way. Like, I was never the sportsy kid, I was always the art club, music lessons. That was me. So as I got older, I really just leaned into that. And as I was in high school, like applying to colleges, I was looking for careers that would allow me to be creative, but I would still be able to make a decent amount of money. Because for years, I was determined that I was going to be an artist. Like, I was going to be in museums, I was going to be like the next Picasso, and nobody could tell me differently. But then I kind of had a reality check, and I was like, okay, I actually need to do something else. Like, I still paint and things like that on the side, but I was like, okay, let's make that a hobby.
Mhm.
So then I actually landed on architecture first,
Hmm.
and I studied that for a year. And then I realized that I really don't care that much about buildings. And I really just did not. I liked the process, I would say, of using Illustrator, because we had to use Adobe to create floor plans and drawings. So I liked Illustrator and Photoshop, and I was like, let me just switch to graphic design,
Mm.
because I don't see myself being an architect, but I do like the creativity that I get with using Illustrator and Photoshop and Adobe Suite in general. So that's how I ended up doing graphic design. And the last 2 years of college, I actually went to SCAD, which I recently graduated from. I will say SCAD was intense. And I don't know if just in my research I just overlooked that, but it was intense. But I definitely wanted to pull my hair out at times. But I will say I'm really grateful for that strong foundation that I got from SCAD because I learned a lot, like not just about design principles, but about marketing and advertising and even entrepreneurship. So
Mm.
I learned a lot. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, anytime. So I had actually never heard of SCAD, probably because I am more on the West Coast of the country. But anytime that I have sent out an email about you or a LinkedIn post, when I was announcing, oh, Kayla joined our team or anything like that,
Mhm.
I've had multiple people respond to me and say, oh, wow, she graduated from SCAD. That's amazing. So I could already tell SCAD is a really prestigious design school.
Yeah. It is. And honestly, when applying, I didn't know that it had that reputation until afterwards. I had moved to Georgia from New York. So I was
Mm.
just looking for a design school in the area. And I was like, let me just apply here and hopefully I get in. But I would say I'm really glad that I did get in.
Hmm. Well, so, I actually started my journey as a writer. I loved writing. I thought I was going to be a writer. And then I also had a little bit of a reality check, right? And I think that some people look at people who do copywriting and marketers or graphic designers and say, oh, you gave up on the artist's dream. You fell into the corporate world, and you didn't want to do that. But I actually love what I do now. I get so much joy and fulfillment from working with the business owners that I do and, helping them bring their messaging to life and connect with their ideal clients. And I'm wondering how your experience has been as you've kind of, made that transition a little bit to say, well, actually, I do want to make money as well. Do you feel like you've lost some of the passion working with businesses, or has it been enjoyable for you?
I would definitely say that it's been enjoyable for me because I feel like I'm making a direct impact. Like, for example, my friend's brother, he's a teacher, but he has a passion for ice cream, and he started an ice cream company where he like hand makes all of these like crazy flavors like peanut butter and jelly and apple pie ice cream. So I helped him with his logo and everything for that, and then just seeing how that logo was like on everything and he made stickers and it was just like everywhere and how that became like a big thing and just seeing how I was able to directly impact his company,
Mm.
it felt really good. So I do like having that direct impact on people and their company.
Absolutely. Well, you and I met working with a mutual client. He was the one who introduced us. I'm sure he wouldn't mind if I named him by name. So, Nathan of Servant Wealth Management, you were working with him to just kind of elevate his online presence. I know that you did some work on his website. You helped him with his online presence on social media, creating some imagery for him. Can you talk us through a little bit about what you did with Nathan and how that really impacted the way that he was able to show up online?
Yes. So I will say that a big part of the process was Nathan's openness
Mm.
to my ideas and to what I had to offer. He was really receptive to everything, all the feedback that I had on his previous website. So that made it really easy for me to go in and then be able to make the changes that I saw fit. And
Mm.
then also just in listening to him and knowing his audience from working with him for over a year prior to refreshing his website, knowing that he wanted not much of a brand overhaul, but just a sprucing up, I would
Mm.
say. So just making it a little bit bolder, a little bit of using more colors because his branding is based off of this like navy blue. So even saying, how can we incorporate other blues and make it a little bit more vibrant? And I will say that that was a really fun project for me. And just seeing how excited he was about it as well. And even in him giving me leeway to make all of these social posts. And I will say a lot of them, believe it or not, were his idea. Like he would come to me and
Mm.
say, hey, how can you make this? Like, how can we make this our own? And just knowing that he would trust me to do that, it was great.
Yeah, I love that about him. He comes with lots of really, really great ideas. And then I mean, for us too on the writing side, and then it's really easy for us to kind of implement those for him or execute on them and bring them to life. And then he's usually really happy with them. So I also love that about working with Nathan, like the co-creation process that he brings to the table. I think it's so easy to work with him for
Yeah.
that. And going back to, the sprucing up that you did on the website, I feel like, Kayla, the way that you're talking about it, you feel like all of the changes that you made were really simple. But when I look at the before and after, which is on your portfolio, and I can link to that in the show notes if anyone wants to take a look, I really feel like it's just such an elevation. I mean, his website is easier to read, it's bolder. It's just, I think it speaks to his ideal client much better with the updates that you made. And I think that that work you did is so great.
Well, thank you. Something that I've realized in my design process is that sometimes it's the really simple changes that make the biggest impact, like adding an overlay on a hero image or simply making the font bolder instead of having it as in a regular font and just making it extra bold, or even changing the color on some letters is really what makes the design.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump now because you are doing a whole brand refresh for Moneta as well. And I am really, really, really excited about it. So, I'll kind of paint the picture here for our listeners. I had my brand redone at the end of 2023. And, at the time I was excited about it, but it was also just something I felt like I needed to check off and then we moved on. So I didn't spend a ton of time thinking about it. I didn't do a lot of revisions when it came to me from the designer I was working with at the time. And so I kind of just like with it and ran. And since then, I've had this feeling that my branding is a little bit too muted for my personality and the personality of our team and the type of vibrant work that we do for clients. The brand colors that we had were like a kind of a muted sage green, kind of a muted navy blue, very finance friendly colors, but one of Moneta's values is to be different, is to be human, is to help our clients be human and to help them stand out for their clients in kind of a sea of navy blue. That's just a really common color. And so when I came to you and shared those thoughts with you, you came back with just some really poignant ideas to kind of bring to life what I had been thinking about. So can you walk us through some of the decisions that you've made in helping me and helping us refresh the brand and what you think the impact of those could be?
Well, first of all, I will say that just like when I was working with Nathan, I think a big advantage to creating a new brand or even just refreshing a brand is really knowing the client, like knowing who they are and their personality and their story and how they want to impact their industry. And just in getting to know you, or even what I knew of you before, just like seeing your really bubbly personality and just seeing that in contrast to like the really gray blue and the gray green and like the really kind of grayish toned colors that you had before, it just did not mesh with who you are and what you want to present. So, it knowing that you are like, I don't want to say, well, you're a feminine person. Like you're very
Yes.
feminine and you lean into that. So, I think having more of those feminine colors would really benefit your brand. So I made sure to incorporate some pinks, some yellows, a fuchsia, and I did keep that bluish and the greenish colors just so it's not so much of a shock and those colors are still implemented. So I think that's a really big part of a refresh too, like not changing everything completely where everything is so overwhelming and shocking where your client would say, "Oh my gosh, this is unrecognizable."
Right.
But I will say too that a big part of it has been your openness to my ideas as well. Instead of being like really attached to everything that you have, you were kind of like, I don't care, like do
Yeah.
what you want to do. So that has been great. And honestly, I think I'm really excited for us to unveil everything. And I think that it will have that impact that you're looking for, that vibrancy, that wow, eye popping, you know? So I think that it will go hand in hand with the copy that you make because your copy is not boring at all. So, yes.
I really appreciate that. And yeah, what I love about you working with you, Kayla, is you are such an expert and you do have such great ideas that it's really fun for me to just kind of, I feel like sometimes I kind of dump like what I'm feeling or what I'm looking for, what I want to be like on you. And then you can really take that and come back with some ideas for me that just feel really true to who I am and to who the company is. And one thing that I love that you did, so you mentioned you did keep the blue and the green, and then you kind of built these other vibrant colors around those that would really complement them. And I think you kept the green exactly the same. It's like a sage green, and I do really love that color. And I do love having like a green in there. And then with the blue, you took it and you really brightened it up. I think you took it from a more kind of muted navy-ish blue and you brightened it up into a more like azure color, and I
Right.
really love that. And then I also just can't wait for people to see the pinks and the bright yellow kind of accent colors come in there and really make everything pop. So I also cannot wait to unveil it. I know that as for recording this, you're working on the website right now, and I am so excited to see it when it's done. I'm trying not to like get in there and spy on what you're doing. So I just love that. And then the other thing that you've done is you've taken my logo, and we're not changing the logo too much. We're not changing the font. Anything like that. But you've brought in an additional element from the brand that was already there. It just wasn't being used to its full extent, I think. And that is also going to make the logo pop. And it feels just more proprietary in a sense. It feels more recognizable. And so that's another thing that I really appreciate about you doing as part of this brand refresh update.
Well, you think like you're dumping your ideas and your thoughts on me, it actually is really helpful because in everything that you say, there's always something valuable. Like it's not just like word vomit,
Mm.
it's all valuable. Like you might say something that I'm like, oh, that is actually something that I can draw inspiration from. And you'll think it's like the most simplest thing ever. But that could actually be like the most important thing that gives me insight into how you're thinking and how I can best use my skills.
Now we're going to take a teeny tiny break to hear from our sponsors. FinCon is hands down my favorite conference because there is nowhere else you can be surrounded by hundreds of people who get your work and your passion for financial education. Whether you're podcasting, YouTubing, going all in on your email newsletter, or still figuring out how to turn your financial expertise into engaging content that attracts clients, FinCon is the place you'll find the tools, strategies, and community to grow your practice through content. The schedule is packed with opportunities to learn and make real connections with platform meetups, creator conversations, brand meetings with potential partners who serve your audience, and after hours events where you can actually talk shop with people who understand what you're building. I would love for you to join me at FinCon 2025, the business event for money creators in Portland, September 10th through 12th. Come for the sessions and networking, stay for the community. Make sure to use the code MONETA25 to get $25 off your creator pass. Visit finconexpo.com to grab your pass today. Oh, hey, I am a sponsor of my own podcast, and the thing that I am sponsoring just happens to be free. It's my 7-day email list growth sprint designed for advisors who are tired of posting into the void and want to actually grow their email lists with qualified leads so that you can make your email list your next best source of new clients. 7 days, 10 minutes per day, super actionable tactics that work. How do I know they work? Because they're the tactics I use to grow my own email list. And they're exactly what I did to grow my email list by over 50 subscribers organically in just 30 days. Plus, you'll get exclusive access to my custom GPT lead magnet lab that generates compliance aware lead magnet ideas specifically for financial professionals so that you can take your email list growth strategies to the next level. There is literally nothing else like it in our industry. So if you're ready to stop hoping that people will find you and start actively building your community, join the sprint at monetacopy.com/email sprint or find the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to it. Well, I really appreciate that. And I would love to see if I can dig a little bit deeper. How do you take, what I think is a brain dump, and how does that inspire when you go and start working on a brand refresh? Can you give us a little like peek into your brain almost? Maybe you can think of an example or just in more general terms of, you know, how do you take what somebody is saying to you and then turn it into a brand that reflects them?
So this is actually a technique that I learned while I was at SCAD. And at first I hated it because I was like, this is so stupid and this is so unnecessary. But one of my professors, she made us write out anytime we would start a project, she would make us just write out anything that came to our minds,
Mm,
just a list of random words, whether it's related to the topic or not.
mm,
And then at the end of it, you should have like between 100 to 200 words to go through. And
mm,
then within those words, as you're reading it, you will just like get an idea, just like that.
mm,
At least for me, that's how it works. And I try to do that as I'm working on any project because it really is helpful because it gets you thinking about the project and it gets you thinking about, for example, if I was working on a logo or branding for a car detailing company, I would say, okay, what's associated with cars? Like I would say steering wheel, tires, rims, tools, things like that. So it would just get me thinking about imagery and what can I implement in the logo to make it more fun or more playful.
mm,
So even you just saying like random words, like I remember it was our first meeting about the refresh, and you were saying like these colors just don't speak to me or they just don't feel like me. And then that kind of got me thinking because like you are a very bubbly person. So it just got me thinking about like lighter colors or
mm.
brighter colors. So things like that. That's how my brain kind of works.
Oh, I'm so glad I asked you this question. That's so interesting. It sounds really like a process that I do when I am writing or thinking about someone's messaging or anything like that. I think it's this concept almost of like Shitty First Drafting. Are you familiar with that essay by Anne Lamott? Yeah, Shitty First Drafts. And it's really just allowing yourself to write in a totally unfiltered way for the first 30 minutes to an hour of a project, I would say, to write without any expectation that what you're writing right now is going to be used in the final draft. Because by doing that, by giving yourself that space to just write whatever comes to mind, you really uncover ideas that you didn't even know were there. And it
Right.
sounds like that's what you're doing when you're making these lists of words.
And I will say that makes sense because the strongest part of a brand I've learned is the story behind it.
Yeah.
So having those words or just thinking about how these words go together, it helps you craft that story and then to craft that imagery.
And I think you really do have to crack into it. Like, it's not as much as we wish it could be. it's not something that is like polished at the forefront of your mind. You really have to work to get there first. And I think that's the hardest part for so many of us, especially when we feel so busy and overwhelmed. It's hard to make time for that like playful period that really needs to happen at the beginning in order to get to the good stuff. And I just think that for anything that you're doing, whether it's a brand refresh or a brand totally from scratch, from the ground up, or a blog post or a social post or anything like that, you have to give yourself, a even just a teeny bit amount of time to like play and come up with ideas in a totally unjudging way. So I really appreciate you sharing that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, I'm just so excited to have you on the team, Kayla, because I have spent the last 5 years designing my own graphics for things like social media and things like podcast cover art. And there's just so many moments in my day where I'm like, I need a visual element to add to this.
Right.
And any sort of design is just not intuitive to me, which is really interesting because as you were talking and bringing us back to your high school days, you were the artsy girl. That's actually what I was too. I took art classes every single semester. That's the only thing I got college credit for before I went to college was art. And I loved the process of creating with my hands.
Mhm.
But when it comes to design on the screen, I don't know. My brain just jams. I just can't do it. I'm not good at it. And I feel like I waste a lot of time when I'm trying to create stuff. So it's just so nice to have someone on the team now where I can go to you and say, okay, can you create me some templates? Can you redesign the podcast cover art so that it feels more elegant or premiere, I suppose? It's just so nice to have a person on the team who has an eye for that kind of thing and can actually take the time and make something look much better than I could and probably do it in half the time as well.
Well, I'll say, well, I thank you for all of those kind words, but I will say that I do see that artsy eye because even though you think it looks terrible, like for someone who doesn't have design knowledge, the things that you create actually are not as terrible as you think they are. Like sometimes I'll say, wow, Hillary, like, did you go to design school? So,
Well, I really appreciate that. I feel like you're just flattering me right now, but I do really appreciate that. And I agree. I mean, it's not anything that, well, there have been times that I've posted things that I'm embarrassed to post because I just can't spend any more time on them. But I do also think they could be a lot worse. But I think everyone reaches a point in their business at some point where DIYing is not good enough anymore. It's really time to bring in a professional, a person who has the techniques and the expertise to really make everything look elevated. And that's the point that I'm in my business right now is, you know, I I'm proud of the work that we do. And so I want to be proud of, you know, the internal work that we put out there as well. So that's just one thing that I really appreciate about having you on the team.
well, I'm glad to be here and I am just so excited to see all the things that we do in the future.
I am as well. As we wrap up, Kayla, is there anything that I haven't asked you yet about the branding process or the design process or anything like that that you think would be beneficial for our listeners to hear? Maybe if they're thinking about hiring a designer or they're still in that DIY phase of design, anything that comes to mind.
Well, I will say that firstly, I think that a lot of business owners, especially when they don't have an established brand and they don't necessarily have a logo yet, or they don't have a distinctive brand. They don't put as much emphasis or as much effort into branding as they should. So I know people when they're creating a business, like they will spend months and months perfecting their business plan or working on their budget and things like that. And design is kind of just like an afterthought. when it should be the foremost thought. Because having having professional branding, it's an investment.
Mhm.
And the average person might not know, or they might not have all of the design knowledge or design terminology to know, okay, your logo needs more padding or it needs more white space or anything like that. But the average person knows unprofessional from professional.
Mhm.
And if your website looks like it was designed in 2008 and your logo just looks like really, really outdated, they're more than likely going to go with another company.
Mhm.
And I would say, I would say to anyone who has a brand or they're looking to start a company, spend time on your branding and hire a designer that wants to understand you, that is
Mhm.
not just trying to make a logo just to make a logo just so they can get some money. Make sure that they spend the time to understand you and what you offer and get to know you as their client and understand your audience as well so that they know who they're designing for, which I think is a really big part. And also establish your brand story.
Mm.
Understand that. How would you explain your brand to people? And I think that's a big part of hiring a designer as well. How would you explain your design? How would you explain your company to a designer? Because, like, for instance, Hillary, if you came to me and said, oh, I want to do a brand refresh, but I don't really care. Like, I don't really know what I want. I don't really know my audience. Like, I just want to target like financial advisors. I don't really know. That's very different from, oh, I want to target financial advisors and people who are maybe forward thinkers or people who are really invested in their brand and they really want to help people. So I think it's all about how you present your brand to people as well.
I could not agree more. I think that it is getting more and more and more important if you are a business owner who is showing up online, especially. You have to have a brand that people can connect with and that they can buy into. And I think that there's so much psychology into branding. That's something that I've learned from you. I think there's so much psychology behind the colors that you choose and the icons that you have and things like that that I didn't even realize. And I'll give a couple of examples in a second, but I too think that there's just so much value in hiring a professional to help you work through those things and figure those things out, because I know that I would not have been able to figure those things out on my own. And so a couple of examples that I can just share really fast are when we're talking about the colors, the color palette that we've really kind of revamped for my brand. I spent a lot of time talking to you about, okay, so financial advisors are my target audience. So there is an element of, wanting to be professional and wanting to be, an elegant brand as well. So that's one thing that I did like about my original brand. But at the same time, I wanted the brand to be more vibrant and, bold and have some of those feminine colors, even though a lot of my clients are men as well. And so I think you did a really, really great job of hanging on to those colors that were professional and were elegant and maybe mirrored some of the branding that my ideal clients have, but then bringing in those more feminine, bold, vibrant colors as well. So I think that's one thing that you did really, really well, was helping me think through that kind of tension, I suppose, when thinking about a brand refresh. And then the other thing that I noticed is when I asked you to redesign some of my podcast graphics, there were a couple of elements on the one that I had created that you brought into the new one, and you told me why. So I had like a little bookmark icon with my logo on it, and you brought that into the new one, and you told me, I actually really liked that because it sends this subtle message that somebody should bookmark this podcast episode. Somebody should bookmark this content because they're going to want to come back to it and refer to it. And so
Right.
that too, I had not even considered that when I added that to my original podcast art. It was just an easy, like, little thing to put there that I could have my logo on as well. And so again, it really helped me, I think about the psychology behind different choices that we make in our graphics and our design.
Yes. So I think even when the new color palette is unveiled, it's important to know how to balance the colors in
Mm-hmm.
a way where all of these colors are new, but where they're being used in a way that maybe the more quote unquote professional colors are highlighted more, like that cream or the blue and that green. And then we have the more vibrant, more feminine colors as like just pops of colors here and there. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not so overwhelming where it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm drowning in pink,
All
but
right.
it's still there. And I feel like the colors that we chose, I think kind of show the balance of, hey, we're professional and we know our stuff, but we're also feminine and we're girly and nothing is wrong with that.
I love the way that you said that. I think that's so right. And that's how I'm going to talk about it too when it is unveiled. So I'm just really excited. And I think this conversation was so fun. And you gave us so many behind the scenes of what goes on in a designer's brain, and maybe even what some DIYers can think about too when they're still in that phase of business where maybe they can't invest in a professional designer, or maybe they decide, actually, this is an investment that I want to make and I trust that it will come back to me because my branding will bring more clients, more elevated clients. So thank you so much, Kayla, for coming on and sharing all of your wisdom with us. This has been so fun.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I definitely had a great time speaking with you as always. And I will say for my first podcast appearance, this was great.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.